Good morning. Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Thumbs
Yeah, I
up,
can
a
hear you,
little
Michael.
something. Hey,
Good
Kristen,
morning.
good to
Yes.
see you.
Morning.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Career Visioning via Zoom. This is our first time doing this, so I will apologize in advance if we have some technical glitches, which I guarantee we're going to have. If we don't, I'll be disappointed. I'm liking some of the mix of faces I'm seeing on here. Phyllis, good to see you again, as always. I see Darren Giordano, Joe DeVito, Pat Lowe, Joe Kozo, Ryan Van. Hey, we got a great group of people. Do me a favor. Open up your chat box. Keep your chat box open as we go because we'll definitely engage via the chat box. Why don't you just put in the chat box real quick where you're from? That way the other folks that are on the call can see where you're from. And at the end, make sure you save the chat box and actually put in the towns, your main town. Don't just say Central Jersey, say your town. Because what will happen with this is you download the chat box and save this list of agents' names and locations. So when you have a referral down the road, you've got a great group of agents you can refer to that you spent today doing career visioning with. Again, today, tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Marlboro, Jackson, Monmouth County, Woodbury, New York. I think I saw Georgia in there. So we've got people from all over. Good stuff. You should have a copy of the materials. Emily sent that out yesterday. So the way we're going to run here, we're running 4 days, about 2.5 hours a day. Today, I expect to get through the introduction and probably the introduction to the KPA and what the KPA is all about. Have you done a KPA? Have you done a KPA? If you can, I see some nods, some thumbs up. If you've done the KPA, you're going to want to have access to that tomorrow. So if you've done it and don't have it, then reach out to your market center or whoever ran the KPA for you. That way we can make sure you have the KPA. You want to have the KPA in your hands tomorrow. If you've never done a KPA and you're saying a KP what, then actually, if you've never done a KPA and you need to do one, send an email to kwrg27@kw.com. KWRG, Emily, put that email in the chat. KWRG27@kw.com, and Emily will send you a link to the KPA. You'll need about an hour to do that, an hour uninterrupted private time. There's some parts of that are timed. So you want to make sure you don't have any distractions because it'll feel like you'll have flashbacks to the SATs. Who remembers the SATs or any standardized testing? The first time I did it, I started sweating and it brought me back to that testing center in my high school where I had to have 2 number 2 pencils and shade in the circle dark. So that was an interesting experience. Make sure you've got some time to do that. Real quick, I see Phyllis here. Who do we have here that's part of the Social Equality Task Force? If you can just put me in the chat. I'm ready. Good to see you. Phyllis, I see you. I'm trying to figure out how many folks we have on the call that are part of the Social Equality Task Force. Right now, I'm thinking it's about 4 or 5. Phyllis, you asked me the question last night. We're gonna have that call tomorrow because I don't want to disrespect the task force by not having that call. But I will probably have our national task force leaders lead that call. I had this scheduled to set up those calls, and I want to honor your time. So I will be here hosting this tomorrow, and I'm gonna have Valerie, Lisa, Ish, and Leslie spearhead the social equality call tomorrow, which is every Wednesday from 11 to 12. How we doing? You guys excited? Who's taken either career visioning or recruit select before? Now I could see about 25 of you. We're expecting to have 133. We're at 91 right now, 92. We're expecting to have about 135 on this call. So I'm trying to get an idea. If you've taken career visioning, just throw in the chat box. Put in the chat box CP. Or if you took recruit select, put in RS. And again, if you can mute your phone, if you guys can mute your mic, that way we don't have that feedback. And Emily will be muting you as well. If you are in a place where you can keep your video on, I would ask you to please do your best to keep your video on. It makes it a much more enjoyable experience for everyone. Mary Beth Olive's on the line. Good to see you there, Mary Beth. RSTLM many times, CV 3 or 4. I see a lot of folks from the Wayne Market Center, a newly launched market center. So great to have you all here. So we're going to kind of jump into this. And I guess the first place I'm going to start with is, career visioning is about finding and hiring talent. It's about finding and hiring talent to build a big business. And for those of us that remember Recruit Select, Recruit Select used a different tool. It used something called the AVA versus the KPA. And what we found was that tool was very cumbersome. Who here has ever taken the AVA or remembers the AVA? Joe DeVito, I know you have, right? Now, if for those of you that had ever administered an AVA, you felt like you needed a degree in psychology for it in order to figure out the right questions to ask. So it wasn't the easiest tool to use. So the KPA is a much easier tool, a much better conversational tool, and more of a relationship building environment. So what I'm going to do as we go through this, I'm going to switch back and forth. I'm going to share the PowerPoint, cover a slide or two, then I'll turn the PowerPoint off. So if you see me leaning forward, I'm leaning forward to activate that. I wish you guys could see my room right now. I've got about 4 computers in this space going on. One for music, one for the PowerPoint, one so I can still see a couple of you guys. And if you do have a question as we go, or if you want to interact, feel free to unmute, interact, ask your question, then remute. You can also use the chat box as a way to ask a question or ask me to clarify something. When I'm showing you the PowerPoint, I can only see 5 people. So it's a smaller view when I'm showing the PowerPoint. So feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand. Emily will do her best to see if you have a hand raised. And when I say raise your hand, there's actually a tool in here. If you click on participants at the bottom, next to your name, you have the ability. So you can open up that participants box. If you open up the participants box, there should be 3 little dots. It says under the participants, it says invite, mute me, and then there might be 3 little dots. And one of them is a raise hand dot under the 3 dots. So feel free to raise your hand there. Emily will do her best to find you. And if not, just unmute and ask your question. How are we doing so far? Make sense? All right. What is the address of the KPA, please? KWRG27@kw.com. KW, as in Keller Williams, RG there. Emily just posted again. Thanks, Emily. All right. Let's see here. Helps if I turn this on. No, it is on.
Oh, Michael, it says that they're looking for the KPA address that they have to get from the market centers, correct? They have to get that administered from the market centers?
Yeah, so what I explained before is if you've already done the KPA, go to your market center and ask them for it. If you've never done the KPA, yes, you can go to your market center, or you can send the email to the regional email address, Mary Beth, and we're happy to send out that KPA link for folks. So again, if you have it, check with the market center. If you want your market center to send you the link, they can. Emily's happy to send it to you if you send out the KWRG27 @KW email address. So this first chapter is about no one succeeding alone. This is kind of the essence. And this is more about building a mindset for the next 4 days. We will start every day right at 10:30. So, if you get on late, you may miss something. And if you ask something that we already covered, I might say to you, hey, we'd already covered that. And not take time to go back and do it again. So you can do your best to jump on here at 10:30. So this chapter is all about hiring the right people for the right role. Now, I'm going to repeat that again. The right people for the right role. There's been times where I've hired the right people in the wrong role. And that can create a lot of headaches, a lot of challenges. So we're going to kind of set up a vision for what you want to accomplish and why you're here, and then talk about how you find and attract the right people. A couple of things, and just in the workbook, we're pretty much on like page 7 in the workbook. I'll constantly refer to what page we're on there. On this, you'll see a list of what you will learn today. There's going to be 4 things we focus on in this chapter. The first thing is you are who you surround yourself with. And again, as we all remember when we were growing up, you're going to be judged based on who you're friends with. So, you are who you surround yourself with. We're going to talk about owning a job versus owning a business. There is a difference between those 2 things. We're going to talk about talent and how you spot talent and how you can recognize talent. And then 4th, and this isn't there, you might want to write this in, we're going to talk about personality. We're going to talk about personality. And when I say personality, there's 3 things we look at there. We look at number 1, the behavior. You know, and in the past, for those of us that took some of the older courses, it was all about the behavior. You know, it was the behavior is the first 25%. And what we're going to talk about over the next few days is behavior is about 15% of the process. It's about 15% of the process, but it's not the entire process. In addition to behavior, I'm going to look at the thought process, the way someone thinks, the way they process information. Um, Third, most importantly for me, I really look at track record. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how you delve into track record. And what we say is past performance is a pretty good predictor of future results. So if someone doesn't have the perfect behavior for the role, but they have an amazing track record, that's going to be something that you still zero in on. So you need all three of these things. It's not just behavior. It's behavior, it's thought process, and it's track record are all those things that lead into making the right decision for a possible hire. But before we get into that, I want to focus on this piece. You know, you are who you surround yourself with. Write this down. The more powerful your business, the greater the talent you can attract to your business. So this whole course is about creating a big vision for what you want to accomplish. The bigger the vision you have, the better the quality of the person you can attract. If you're like, I just want to sell some houses. Well, okay, that might not be powerful enough, but if you want to sell homes to 300 people and change the world and give back, I really want you to give some serious thought and consideration as to why you're doing this. You know, so again, this is step one of team building. This is step one of team building. Because what Gary Keller often says, if you're doing everything you possibly can and have no room for anything else, you're probably missing a relationship. You're probably missing a relationship. So, you know, answer this question and feel free to throw it in the chat. Why would you want to build a team? Why would you want to build a team? Why would you want to build a big business? You know, you can just kind of go through and sell 15, 20, 25 houses a year. What we find is a single person will probably max out right there around 25 to 30 houses. But beyond there, you need to start attracting people. Mike Richardson, we have some from Cincinnati, Ohio on this. This is awesome. Leverage your time, focus on your big why. Get time back to change more lives. I love that, Mary Beth. You're doing great things down there. And is it Perth Amboy or South Amboy? Yeah, you're doing great things with the
Perth
house you have.
Amboy. Perth.
Awesome. You know, but get time back. Ultimately, people build a team for one of two reasons. Typically, it's about time and also about making more money. And most times, it's about both. How can you have as much time as you can while having an unlimited amount of money that you can earn? And that's ultimately why we want to build a team. Dana, get time back, build something that outlives you, scale a big business. I'm glad you mentioned that, Dana. You know, build something that outlives you. That's the whole purpose in our world about building a team. Let's say, God forbid, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, you get hit by a car tomorrow, you know, and you can't go out there and show houses. Well, then your business is done. But if you have a team, if you've built a big business, you can actually take yourself out of it and still allow the team to operate. Viola, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I don't pronounce your name right, then feel free to let me know that. By building a team, you can actually quantify that. Your database is what you're selling when you go to retire. And I know people that have reaped the benefits of their real estate business for years after they've retired. You know, so who's ever been into a doctor's office? Remember back in the day, you would go to the doctor's office and they'd have the big shelves behind the receptionist of all the folders, and each folder had a little color on it. that color represented the most recent year that patient visited the doctor's office. So when a doctor sells his business, he's selling the patients. When a dentist sells the business, they're selling the patients. When you go to sell your business, you're selling your database that produces a certain amount of appointments and a certain amount of closings and a certain amount of commissions is ultimately what will be the value of your business. Ryan, I love it. Also to maintain great relationships that you'll be able to cultivate down the road. So again, having a team allows you all of these things to create these systems to communicate, to build relationships, and ultimately produce business. This part's going to get a little bit awkward. I'm actually going to turn this off for a second. We'll see how this stop sharing goes. Again, we're on page 9. There we are. Stop sharing. we're on page 9 in your book, so you can see the graphics there. Who has kids? Raise your hand if you have kids, or if you've ever had kids, or if you know somebody with kids, or if you've ever been a kid. Feel free to raise your hand. So again, if you look at this graph on page 9 on the left side, if your kid hangs out with losers, what could that possibly make your kid? Yeah, it's going to get awkward. It could make them a loser. If your kid's hanging out with the bad kids in school, your kid, whether they're a bad kid or not, are going to be lumped in with those bad kids in school. Whereas if your kid is hanging out with a successful kid, it's going to lead your child to be more successful. And this is where it gets really awkward. Let's say your spouse is hanging out with, we'll call it an interesting crowd. Well, what could that possibly say about your spouse? So again, who you surround yourself with matters. If you hang out with a bunch of people that oftentimes complain about everybody else in their life, what are they probably doing when you're not there? They're probably complaining about you as well. Karen, I'm watching your lips, and you're getting it. I'm loving it, Karen Sims. So let's hold on for a second here. Everyone here, I hope everyone here wants to build a big life, right? Are you here to build a big life, to create opportunities perhaps for yourself, for your family, for the people around you? So you're looking to build a big life. So if you're looking to build a big life, where do you need to go? What do you need to do? You need to build a big business, because by building a big business allows you to build a big life. Chatter Singh, feel free to, I think you have your hand raised. Do you have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask the question if you like.
No, Mike, actually, I was just raising my hand when you asked if we had children. That's it.
Oh, gotcha. You're like, I do. It's totally cool. So when you raise your hand in the box, that it actually puts a little hand up on my screen. We're going to come to you to see if you have a question. If you just want to interact, then feel free to lower it. Otherwise, we'll give you a chance to talk. So if you want to build a big life, you need to build a big business, because a big business is what we use to fund a big life. Write that down. Write that down. A big business is what we use to fund a big life. And when you see those people, I love it. Quarantine's been interesting, hasn't it? The last couple of months. I read an article on some of the wealthiest people in the world were going out on their yachts in the middle of the Caribbean, and that's how they were weathering the storm during the quarantine. And again, what I respect about that is they built big businesses to be able to create a life that allows them to go out there on a yacht and be completely away from the world and have people go and buy their food and do their cooking and all that fun stuff. So again, I want you to remember that the goal here is to build a big life. And the action step to build a big life is to build a big business. So if I go back to the PowerPoint, let's see how this goes here for me. Interesting. I think when I go back and forth, I'm going to lose my spot. We'll see how that goes. Oh, good. So again, I like this truth that's in this section. And if you haven't heard it, please, pay attention to it. If you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with in business, your level of success is going to be the average of the 5 people you hire. I love Tony DeCello has always said, if you want to make $100,000 a year, you hang out with a bunch of people that make $100,000 a year. If you want to make $1 million a year, hang out with people that make $1 million a year. So who you surround yourself with matters, both from peers and also from those people you attract. So, your ability to grow and build a big business is going to be in proportion to the people that you hire in your world. So, when we talk about owning a job versus owning a business, when you have a job, I do it, and sometimes we do it. But when you have a job and you go away on vacation, what tends to happen? Do you come back and just jump right back into it, or do you probably come back to a pile of stuff that you've got to deal with, that you've got to address? If you have a real estate business and you go away on vacation, are you taking phone calls on that real estate business? Are you dealing with buyers and sellers? Or can you put your vacation message on saying, hey, I'm on vacation for the next 7 days with no access to email or cell phone. Call this person and don't bother me. That's kind of the place we're going, is they do it and theirs. I just got fortunate enough to spend the last 5 days in an RV. in Delaware, where I was actually able to say, if you need, if you contact me, I'll call you back Tuesday. And if you need something more immediate, call Emily, call Aaron, call other people. And I was able to actually put my phone away for 5 days. My 8-year-old actually came to me yesterday and said, Dad, I have not seen your phone in your hand the last 5 days. So, you know, when your 8-year-old recognizes that you don't have that phone tethered to you, it makes you realize that you're enjoying that time a little bit better. So again, the purpose of this is by having a business, you have other people you surround yourself with that can help you succeed at a high level, even when you're not there. Even when you're not there. So again, if you're doing it, it's a job. I want you to draw a line right between the we do it and they do it. Draw a line top to bottom on your page between the we do it and they do it. So on the left side, it's a job. On the right side, when you're there, where can you be? On the right side, when you have a business, where can you be on the right side? The answer to that is anywhere you want to be. Anywhere you want to be. Because at that point, you own a business, you've got freedom, you've got flexibility. I look at the definition of retirement. To me, I don't think I'll ever retire. I don't think I'll ever go back and just coast. To me, the definition of retiring is working because you want to work, not working because you have to work. So again, that's kind of why we're building these businesses and teaching this team building, is to give you more options. Actually, can I ask for a volunteer to read on page 11? I want to read that little section there that starts with very few people get today. Anyone want to help me out by volunteering? If you do, just unmute your phone and feel free to read that section for me. Page 11. It's right underneath the, if you have to show up every day you own a job, you do not have a business.
I'll help you out, Michael.
Thank you, Phyllis Taylor. I appreciate that. Very few people read that little paragraph there.
Yes, very few people get to they. Most people are stuck in I, thinking that they are in we, while others think they are in they, while really they are in we. The highest expression of they is when you have entrepreneurs building their business inside yours rather than going outside.
And that entrepreneurialism is amazing. I had never heard that word. When I took the trainer class for this, and Ben Kinney was sitting in the front row, and he raised his hand and said, "Oh, I heard Gary Keller talking about entrepreneurialism, 15 years ago." Now, we all know what an entrepreneur is, correct? An entrepreneur is someone that can go out there and build a big business. Look at Gary Keller. Gary Keller built this world of KW. He built the business so big that he was able to attract entrepreneurs that could grow their business as big as they want to build it underneath his umbrella. So how big did Gary Keller's vision have to be to build a business big enough to have thousands of millionaires, people that operate big businesses, and 160,000 people, 815 franchises, and that's just in the U.S. and Canada alone. So how big did his vision have to be to build a business big enough that would allow so many people to build a big life within it? And so I kind of want you to think about this entrepreneurialism concept. Is where you want to attract people that want to build a big life within your life. But here's the challenge. If you don't have a big goal for yourself, if you don't have a big goal for your life, you're ultimately not going to be able to attract those great people. Those people will leave you because if they hit a ceiling, and most people leave for two reasons. They leave because they either hit a ceiling and can't grow anymore, or they leave because they're underappreciated. So you got to build a world that allows someone to grow as big as they can grow without any ceiling and show them the appreciation of doing it. Your vision has to be so big that they can carve out a big life. So they build a big life inside of yours. It was interesting when I went to go from the team leader role to the regional role, me and Mark Willis had a conversation of some of the OPs that I was in business with. And first of all, those OPs are amazing people. I'm very good friends with them to this day. But he made a comment. He said, I feel bad that those OPs didn't have a big enough world to allow you to grow within it. And you had to go somewhere else. Michael, is there a way to raise your volume? Everyone else is loud when they speak, but your mic is low. Let me check on that real quick. Let me just see what my mic level is here. Is that any better? Do I sound a little louder, Ariel? That's as loud as I can go. You might need to lower your volume now. So I saw Phyllis and Mary Beth just get blown out when I spoke there. So Stephanie, it may be too loud. Lower the volume on your computer. I'm gonna put my mic up to the max. That way everyone has the good. Sorry, the Boswell IOSA group. So again, feel free to adjust the volume on your side. That's as high as I can bring it here. So the truth, again, we're still on page 11 here. Let me see if it's page 11. The one thing standing between owning a job and owning a business or empire are the people you hire. So I want you to write this down on page 11. Vision and fit. Vision and fit. The size of your vision will determine the quality of the people you can attract. And whether or not they're a fit for your organization is a question you have to ask yourself. Who here knows Mo Anderson? Hopefully all of you do. I'm going to stop the sharing for a second. Mo Anderson, when she joined as president, we had about 1,200 agents in all of Keller Williams Realty. So Gary Keller opened up Keller Williams in 1983. And it took it from 83 to about 93, 94, about 10 years to build the organization at 1,200 people. When Mo Anderson came in, she realized something interesting. She realized that we were trying to fit the model to the people as opposed to finding the people that fit the model. So she came in and de-hired half of the regional directors and half of the OPs. She took Keller Williams Realty from 1,200 associates back down to about 600 people. Then over the next 10 years, from 95 to 2005, she took it from 600 to 55,000. 600 to 55,000. And the lesson she teaches is find the people that fit your business. Find the people that fit your vision. Don't try to fit your business to the people. That's a mistake I find rainmakers doing, is they're constantly trying to adjust their business to make a place for a person as opposed to finding the person that fits your business. So again, have a clear vision on what you want your business to be. Have a clear vision on what you want your business to be, and then go out and attract the people that fit into that vision. So, and we don't really get into it here, but I want to stop for a second and just talk about this for a second. I want you to think about this. What's the value proposition of being in business with you? What's the value proposition of being in business with you? So if someone's looking to build a big team, the first question I'm going to ask them is, what's the value proposition of being in business with you? So feel free to unmute and share some of those things, or put it in the chat box. Why would an agent want to be on your team? What do they get by being on your team? What's in it for them? This is an interactive part, by the way. I'm a servant leader, love it. Beth and Gravati, good to see you on here. Track record, Adele, love it. Love it, track record of success. And if you have a track record of success, that's a value you offer to the people that join you, because you can help them succeed at a high level. Love it. What else? Allow my agents to stay in their 20%. Krister, love it. Have them focus on what makes them the most money. Leveraging their 80%. Opportunity for success. Access, love it, Mary Beth, to your network database. I love it. The screen's moving so fast, I can't actually hit them all. So focus on the bigger picture, mentoring, support, loyalty. Know that your phone is one of those biggest things they have access to, that they can call you and ask for help, ask for support. Leverage, mentorship, vision of life worth living. Here's the thing. If you're building a big real estate business, leads have to be part of your value proposition. A lot of people teach that differently. To me, you have to be generating so much business that you don't have time for it all, is why you want to attract people. I remember Chris Heller, the year Chris Heller became #1 in the company, I think it was 2008, 2009. He had done about $180 million in business that year. Again, back in 2008, 2009, 180 million was the top. Now we have agents doing over 1 billion a year in sales. And I said to him, I said, Chris, how many people on your team lead generate? How many people on his team? At this time, he had about 15 people on his team. How many people on his team do you think he said lead generated? 1. He said 1, me. 1, me. That it's my job. That's all he did. He was a lead generator. He lived in the lead generation so much. He farmed off the seller leads, the buyer leads, the rental leads for his team. But his vision was he was the rainmaker. He was the one that created a funnel so big that he was able to support as many people as he wanted to. Now, I know a lot of teams teach that everyone on the team should be lead generating, and there's no right or wrong. But what I've realized in my 14 years here with the company is people tend to leave teams when they feel like they're not getting leads from that team, that they're only bringing business to the team. So leads have to be part of the value proposition. Admin support needs to be part of the value proposition. And kind of the way I like to draw it out is like this. I kind of look at it this way, and this isn't part of the course, it's just something I teach. I look at the transaction like this. There's three parts to every transaction. Can you see that enough? There's three parts. There's the lead gen part. There is the meet to contract. And by the way, I can adjust my microphone. I can't adjust my handwriting. My handwriting sucks. So get used to poor handwriting the next couple of days. And then there's the contract to close. So I kind of live in these three worlds of an average real estate transaction. Where does the lead come from? Who is showing the lead to contract? And who's servicing the contract to close? And each of these parts have a value on it. This is worth 25 to 30%. This is worth 25 to 30%, which makes this worth 40 to 50%. So when I look at it, I say, okay, who on the team generated the piece of business? And what does that lead look like? Is it a lead of, hey, here's a lead that I've got for you. Feel free to work and see what you can do. Or do you hand out an appointment? If you're handing out an appointment, it's got considerably higher value than if you're just giving them a bunch of leads. Keep in mind, most agents join teams. I'll answer a question in a minute, Esteban. Most agents join teams because they can't generate leads. We have the 80-20 rule for a reason. 20% of the agents do 80% of the business. Right now, it's actually like 90-10. 10% of the agents are doing about 90% of the business. And that's because a lot of agents just don't know how to generate leads. So the lead generation part is why a lot of people join teams. This says, Esteban, meet to contract. Thank you, Pat Lowe. Pat Lowe is going to be my help here. So meet to contract. And thank you, Mike Richardson. Appreciate that. This one says contract to close. So I look at your MLS. Here's some interesting stats. I look at 5 MLSs. Garden State MLS that has about 12,000 members. LIBOR that has about 16,000 members. Connecticut MLS, I think they've got about 10,000 members. So I look at about 5 MLSs, and these stats are pretty consistent. You ready? Now, these are agents that are in the MLS, which means they're active realtors. They pay board dues. They pay errors and omission. They pay their brokers, whatever the broker fee is. And over the last 12 years, 13 years I've been tracking this number, it's consistent. 42 to 43% of everyone in the MLS has done zero business in the last 12 months. 42 to 43% have done zero business in the last 12 months. Another 35% have done 2 or less transactions. 2 or less transactions. So about 75 to 78% of all active realtors paying their fees, paying E&O, are doing less than 2 transactions a year. Why? Because once they get that one friend or family member, they don't know what else to do at that point. That's why there's about, some people say a 30% turnover per year. Some people say it's a 70% turnover per year. But people tend to come and go in the business because they think it's easy. When they come and realize how challenging it is to build a business to attract leads, they sometimes get challenged. So again, I do think leads need to be part of the value proposition, but so does the contract to close. So does the contract to close. So I kind of break it down this way. What are you providing? And what you're providing as part of your value proposition is in direct proportion to the commission you can keep and dictate. Does that make sense? I'm going to pause for a second. I just kind of covered a lot in a very short period of time. Any questions on that before I move on? Cool. This is easy. I get a lot more questions in the classroom. In the classroom, we'd all be wearing masks and sitting 8 to 10 feet from each other. So this works. All right, let's jump back into the.
Michael, would you also say?
Yes, Michael, we both.
Adele first, and the second person. Adele, go for it.
Lead gen, meet to contract, contract to close. What were the numbers that you said percentage were again?
Yep.
25?
So under lead generation, I say the lead is worth 25 to 30%. 25 to 30%. Again, that also depends on what you do to cultivate the lead. I mean, come on, in that lead generation is the 33 touch you're doing to both your Met database and their Met database. If you've got people on your team, they should want to be benefiting from the marketing you do to the sphere of influence. So the 33 touches, the 12 directs, the 8x8s, all that take a person from the not Met world to the Met world and the Met world to an appointment world. So the lead is worth 25 to 30%. The activity of meeting them to getting them under contract is worth 40 to 50%. 40 to 50%. Now, so what I say to that is, at what point do they stop? You know, do you step back in and help them with the contract? If so, if you help negotiate the contract, it's going to be on the lower side. If they do the contract themselves, it'll be on the higher side. So 40 to 50%, and then contract to close. Contract to close is worth 25 to 30. And where this varies is who's going to the inspections, who's going to the appraisal, who's going and getting the CO done.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to repeat it.
Hi, how are you?
I wanted you to repeat it because I find.
Wait a second, Amrita, can you
No
mute
problem.
your phone?
I was just.
Okay. I find that that's really important because as I watch a lot of the rainmakers, and they're not team leaders, they're rainmakers of their team, they overcompensate. And while the lead, if I gave a lead right now to California, it would be worth 25 or 30%, just like you stated, because the real work is in getting it to closing. And what a lot of rainmakers don't really share their value, which is getting it to closing, the coaching, the jumping in. So many of the agents on a team are actually show agents and not really buyer agents.
True.
And I think
Very true.
that's something that is not really spoken of. I watch my rainmakers work so hard.
I can tell you that if I'm giving out a family member as a lead, I'm giving out a 50-50 split, you know, and the person's doing everything because, you know what, I know I'm be overcoming the objections of my family member. I know I'm going to help them with what that offer needs to look like. When the home inspection comes back, my family member is going to come to me and talk to the home inspection. So again, your proximity, your relationship to the person should dictate how much of the commission you keep. The guy does a lot of social media stuff in California. Teaches the social media, bald, help me out. Anyone know who I'm talking about? Al Donahue, he's up in Bergen County a few times. What's that?
Todd Butzer?
No, not Todd Butzer. There's a guy in California that's been in our region a bunch of times teaching the 6 areas of social media. And I will remember it. He just goes after luxury listings. And he'll call someone from a different part of the country and say, hey, I've got a $2 million listing. You want to split it 50-50 with me? Because even though he's having someone on the ground work the lead, he's still going to do a lot behind the scenes. Not Nick Baldwin. I know you think about that. It wasn't Nick Baldwin. It's Tony.
Giordano.
We'll come back to Thank you, Mary Beth Olive. Thank you, Rossi. Yes, Tony Giordano. Wow, we work together, guys. We got a good team on this call. And you know what? Jason Abrams does the same thing. Jason Abrams specializes in athletes. And he's got people all around the country that will service the athlete. But he splits it with them 50-50 because he has the relationship. And he's helping through the entire process. It's not just, here's the lead, good luck. He's communicating and helping throughout the entire process. So again, the lead gen is worth 25 to 30. That meet to contract is worth 40 to 50. Now, if your team member is going out to the appraisals and the home inspection, they might bite into this a little bit. I know a lot of people will often have a buyer's agent on a 50 or a 60% split because the buyer's agent is doing a lot of that activity. So keep in mind, we've got 75% of realtors don't know how to generate leads. So I saw someone in the chat box before say command. Thanks, Michael Guerra. Say command. If you've got command scares people. If you've got command figured out, what's up, man? If you've got command figured out and you can do that, that's going to give you leverage to attract people to your team. I talked to someone earlier that generated 60 leads through command over the weekend alone. So if you can do that and hand out leads, you're going to have your unfair share of opportunity here. Any other questions on this? Michael broke down the splits. Who's saying your question?
Yes, it's not a question. It's like I want to share about command. So there's a lot of leads you can generate through command. I have been working on that even more and more and more. And I'm not just doing like one, to generate leads. I do more than advertisement at the same time. You will get different leads. Sometimes when I get like multiple leads duplicated, I'll be more insistent with that, which is telling me like this person is ready sooner to buy or sell.
You make it the same lead through 2 or 3 different lead sources, right? And that's how you know how much more of an active lead they are. I saw Tom Greco. Do you have a comment, Tom? All right. So again, this little part of breaking down how things are shared, that's not something that's in the book, but it's something that I found it's good to talk about during this course because there's not always a place to go and talk about those things.
A question, Mike.
Sure.
In regards to breaking down leads, when you have a team, shouldn't you keep it basically leveraged across the board 50-50, unless, of course, you're hiring a showing agent, and that would be a different percentage? Wouldn't I heard that if you don't, it causes issues within the team themselves.
Well, great point, Viola. You have to be consistent in whatever you do. No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to take it back. Number one, the split you offer is in direct proportion to the value you offer. Now, I'm not going to say everyone on a team is created equal, Viola, because think of yourself as a traditional broker here. You are a traditional broker. You are a dependent broker where you got agents joining you for your leads, for your support, for your help. So if I've got someone on my team that's generating 30 contracts a year, I'm not going to treat them the same way as someone that's generating 5 contracts a year. So for instance, I spoke to one team recently. They have a sliding scale like many of us remember from the Caldwell Banker or Weicker days. You know, when someone starts, they're on a 40 or 45% split. When after they close 5 transactions, they get bumped to a 50, to a 55, to a 60. There's some teams that will allow an agent to get to a 65, 70% split based on how much business they generate. So I think you need to have, like Keller Williams does, we're transparent. There's no secrets in our world. If you're going to have, Mary Beth, I'm going to ask you to share what you posted in a second. If you have people on your team that are different production levels, they should all have the ability to get to whatever that top person gets to. But they should not necessarily be being created equally. Because here's the thing: if I treat a brand new agent on my team the same way I treat a 30 unit a year agent, they might not be super happy with what they're getting. So I think if you think of yourself as a traditional broker and you're setting up a split schedule, it could be one way to do it. Mary Beth, what did you just share in the chat box? You're muted.
So what I shared in the chat box is I had found this. Should I do a screen share?
Try, see if it lets you. I have to stop my screen share first.
Okay.
You want to try to share your screen?
Yep, got it. Okay, so this is found in KW Connect, and it basically is a compensation model for just suggested salaries and percentages for all the different roles that we're discussing, admin support as well, and leadership.
Yep, awesome. Awesome. So she put that link in the chat box. If you copy and post that, that should take you to it. And Bill, I love what you reinforced just now, Bill. You know, well put. A team is basically running a small traditional brokerage within an interdependent model. It does not allow you. It does not allow you to pull that down. So, Mary Beth, maybe email that to Emily, and we'll let her post it as well, or send it out with an email later. You are a small, no problem. We're going to get that link either reposted, that PDF either reposted, or we'll get it emailed out to you. So you are running a traditional brokerage inside an interdependent brokerage. I mean, that's what Ben Kinney's doing. That's what all those top people that you see that are running these huge teams. It's a dependent brokerage, a traditional brokerage inside an interdependent model. So let's go back to this. All right, so that last 15 minutes of dialogue is not in the course content. So I will be making up for that time some results for the next 4 days. But I hope you found value to the discussion on the compensation models. There we go. You'll hear the term empire builders quite a bit. The term empire builders. Business leaders and builders indispensable to growth. Typically, the track record personality are results oriented, decisive, and take charge. Adele DeMoro, you're an empire builder. I mean, you've got multiple franchises. What? 1,200 agents. How many agents you have now?
Hold on, I gotta unmute myself.
You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, okay. We have, I think, 1,400
agents. You're ranked in the most recent Real Trends as biggest brokerages in the state of New Jersey. I don't know if you've seen that, but definitely take a look at it. That just came out about 2 weeks ago. So all this is about building a big world. And on this question on page 13, what is Gary Keller's job? Your job is to attract talent and hire empire builders wherever you can in order to build the biggest business you can. So what does the model dictate? At what point do you make the first hire admin? Great question, Amrita. Great question. I'm going to jump out of this again. For those of us that came to Jackie Ellis a couple years ago, we had Jackie Ellis in our world for a team building class, and she kind of set it up like this. And I think we put it kind of here as the first level. This is 0 transactions a year. Typically, someone can get to about 24 transactions a year with just you. Now, again, your price point matters here. The higher the price point, the quicker you can hire leverage. But somewhere around 24, some people that are really good with systems and good with technology can even get to 36. Rarely do we see someone getting over 36 transactions a year when you have to then add the admin. You add an admin somewhere around 24 to 36 transactions a year. Let's do something real quick. I want to do a quick exercise. On a piece of paper, write down whatever your GCI was last year. Write down whatever your GCI was last year. Divide that by 48 weeks. Divide that by 48 weeks. And divide that by 40 hours in a week. Divide that by 40 hours in a week. Write down, throw some of those numbers in the chat box. Again, your gross divided by 48 weeks in a year divided by 40 hours in a week gives you what your value per hour is. How much are you worth? How much is your time worth? While you're doing this, you need to be really clear on what your time is worth. So I see questions on hiring the first admin, 7292. I hired my first admin 6 months in the business. I was 21 years old, $572 an hour. I was 21 years old full time, and I realized very quick $729 per hour. Every time I touch a piece of paper, I was paying myself $15 an hour. So every time you touch a piece of paper, you're paying yourself $15 an hour. So if your time is worth 73 or 572 or 729, you're devaluing yourself every time you touch paper. So when you hire an admin is very much up to you. I hired my first admin 6 months in because I realized I was really good at generating the business and really bad at all the other stuff. So my first year in the business, I generated $230,000 in GCI. $230,000 my first year in the business. What kills me when I came to this company, I went back and did the calculation. I only made $62,000 that year because the rest is what my broker took because I was with a large traditional broker at the time. Mike, could you translate the units into volume or GCI? So first of all, Joe, I don't believe in starting with a part-time admin. I don't believe in starting with a part-time admin. The challenge you have with a part-time admin is that person will rarely convert to a full-time. They'll rarely convert to a full-time because they're part-time for a reason. So the challenge you have with a part-time admin is you start, then they're not, you train them, then very rarely are they the person that can go to full-time, so you're there then starting over again. Many market centers, I know mine are looking at it quite aggressively right now. We're looking at bringing on a transaction coordinator, where if you need admin support, but you're not quite ready for an admin, you could pay a transaction coordinator $250 to $300 to do a lot of your paperwork as part of the transaction. That's the model we're currently looking at. But so if I'm looking at this as GCI, look at it this way, Joe, what percentage of your GCI should be spent on admin staff? What percentage, according to the MRA budget model, what percentage of GCI should be admin? It's 10 to 12%. 10 to 12%. So if you take this to GCI, around 300,000 in GCI, you can afford a $30,000 admin, which is pretty much your floor. Which is pretty much your floor on that person. Now, I will get to a point, the very last day, Friday, I'm going to do a whole, as part of the offer, I'm going to do a whole mastermind with you on ways you can compensate an admin. And salary is just one part of compensation. So, Gina, I think you were asking about GCI. At 300,000, with 10 to 12% of your GCI being your admin expense, at 300,000, you can afford about $30,000 a year, about $30,000 a year toward that admin. So typically, you're about 250 to 300 in gross, 24 to 36 transactions, you can add an admin. An admin is always your first hire. An admin is always your first hire. Yeah, you better get more listings. Most people want to hire a buyer's agent first. Why do you think most people want to hire a buyer's agent first? Because you only pay them when you close. So it doesn't cost you anything out of your pocket. So William, 30 to 36, if you're going to mention 10 to 12%. So yeah, 10 to 12%, you're right, 30. William, I couldn't do the math at 12% on that number. So thanks for helping me out with that. So you know, around here, you can hire that person. This person should get you a minimum of a 4 times return. A minimum of a 4 times return. Some people say a 10-time return. So if I'm spending $30,000 on this person, I want to increase my GCI by a minimum of 120,000. A minimum of 120,000. So if at that point, I'm then ready to add a buyer's agent or a showing agent. You know, all those different levels at that point. So again, this question was, you know, where do you hire your first admin? Typically 24 to 36 transactions, typically around 300 to 360,000 in GCI.
Hey,
now,
Mike,
as you go through, what's that, Amrita?
can I ask you a quick question on that?
Sure.
So I understand that we're saying we're doing the calculation based on GCI divided by the 48 weeks and the 40 hours.
No, so let me just clarify. That calculation was just figuring out what you were worth, what your time's worth.
Right. To determine at what point I should hire, right? Because it's not worth me doing the admin work if my cost per hour is greater.
Right, yeah. If you're worth $300 per hour, you want to get rid of that $15 per hour stuff as quick as possible.
Correct. So my question to you is, I may not work 48 weeks. I may work only 38 weeks compared to everybody else because I've got little kids or whatever my obligations in life are. I don't work 40 hours. Maybe one week I work 30 hours in the next, right? So I guess what I'm trying to see is it okay if I hire someone before I get to a point of the 24 transactions?
I knew someone that was doing 18 transactions, $10 million in production, which is about 250. They hired an assistant then. So everyone's threshold for paying is different.
Okay.
So you can hire them whenever you want. Just know that there might be that time where it costs you a little bit more and it takes a little bit longer to get the return back on that money. But I've seen people hire them at 7 and 8 million in production because they despise the paperwork just so much. So it's a question for you.
Okay.
I've seen some people get to 400, 500,000 in gross commission before they hire someone. So, again, these are just laws of averages. 24 to 36 transactions is about what we see.
Okay.
Do we consider buyer agent hires? I've always wondered that. Every single person on your team is a hire. The time you want to take on hiring each person is so important because that buyer's agent is going to affect your reputation. So you want to give consideration to everyone that you hire and follow the process with everyone. I like what Beth and Kervati just mentioned. Thank you, Beth. Virtual assistants can work in the short term without a doubt. You can get VAs to leverage out some of that paperwork. That could cost you $8,000 or $9,000 a year. A VA. So a VA is a way to do it. A transaction coordinator is a way to do it. And without a doubt, you can go part-time if you need to. My disclaimer with the part-time admin is don't always expect that part-time to be the full-time person. They're part-time for a reason. So just be careful with that. I saw some questions in there about other aspects of things. I saw a question in there on second hire, third hire. We'll get to all that stuff. So, have patience. We will get to all the different hires you can make as part of the process. I do want to get back on track because we're a little bit off at the moment. All righty. So again, your job is to grow your world as big you can grow it so you can attract as much talent as you want to within it. Again, I go back to Gary's thing before, as I mentioned. If this is your world, you want to be able to attract as many talented people as possible in your world. For those of you who can't see my handwriting, each of those circles say talent inside it. So here's the challenge. If you have someone in here that's non-talent, you've now just taken up part of your world with someone that's going to underperform for you. So we'll talk more about that as we go. Each of these people should be putting pressure on you to grow. That's one of the signs that we have to spot talent. Talent puts pressure on talent. So if you find them pushing you and pushing you to grow even more, it's because that's what talent does. Again, I love the sports analogies, just real quick. When you look at some of these sports teams, have you seen many sports teams that put the best players on the field and still lost? So think of yourself as a sports team. You want to attract the best talent you possibly can for your world. Why is this not clicking? So again, you want to focus on about 5 people. You want to focus about 5 people and use those 5 people to help you grow, help you grow, help you grow. Here's the thing. If everyone on your team is reporting to you, you probably have a problem. The most successful organizations in America use the power of 5. That no person has more than 5 direct reports. No person has more than 5 direct reports. Do you know the most dysfunctional job in America? The most dysfunctional job in America? And this isn't a politics comment. We're not getting the politics on this call. But the office of the President of the United States, not the person who's currently sitting in it, the office of the President of the United States has 84 direct reports. 84 direct reports. So again, the most successful Fortune 500 companies know that you want to have no more than 3 to 5 direct reports. So as you're building your business, each person you hire, you want to ask yourself, is this someone that I can task to lead others? Is this someone I can task to lead others? So when you look at span of control on page 17, it talks about, again, the ideal number to be 5. The people you want to pour into are 1, you want to give them training. They need to perform at a high level. Number 2, provide them the leadership to achieve a greater level of success. And number 3, create opportunities as the organization grows. So again, you want to keep it to no more than 5. Here's our description of talent, going on to page 19. Our description of talent. And let me just see what the next, yeah, we'll go that. Talent is a motivated person who is a perfect match for the job. That is the next logical step in their career path. That's kind of how we define talent. And when we look at the perfect match and underline those words in red, a person is the perfect match when they have the knowledge, skills, track record, and personality to get the job done in a cultural fit in line with the organization. So underlying knowledge, skills, track record, personality, and cultural fit. The career visioning process is designed to help you analyze those 5 pieces right there. The CD process is about helping you understand their knowledge, their skills, their track record, their personality, and the cultural fit for the organization. So let's just go through this real quick. Non-talent in a role. So we're on page 19. Non-talent brings you, what do you think a non-talented person brings you? I think I saw you say grief, Phyllis. What's that, Mike?
More work.
More work, yeah.
Brings you back.
That non-talent brings you problems, more work, grief, rework,
aggravation.
Stress, aggravation. Jeanette, don't hold back. So you know you can spot, yes, Margaret, non-talent person brings you drama. They give you the job back. So that's a way for you to spot that person because they bring you the problems. Whereas a talent in the role finds solutions. You know the difference because they come to you saying, hey, here's my problem. Here's 2 or 3 things I'm thinking about. So you want to almost train them to make sure they're coming to you with a couple of strategies and not just looking for the answer. In the next section, which is 30, 60, 90, the 30, 60, 90 training process is about helping them become a self-managed individual. No talent prevents you from attracting more great talent. Beth, I love that because think about it. A talented person is going to look at that non-talent you're in business with, and who's that a reflection of?
You.
If you're in business with someone who's not talented, who's that a reflection of? I think I saw Mike point at himself. And that talented person is going to be like, oh, if you're in business with this person, what does that say about you? The non-talent doesn't fulfill your needs and ends up giving you back pieces of their job, whereas the talent shares your goals and fulfills the needs as a natural byproduct to fulfill their own. Non-talent doesn't know what they want and isn't searching, whereas a talent knows exactly what they want and they're actively searching. I hired someone a few years ago. On one of our first calls, the person said to me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I thought that was just such a cool question for a candidate for an opportunity to ask about where I see myself, because he wants to make sure he's making the decision, or she, of getting in business with someone that's talent. Non-talent in a role requires pushing. You'll feel that. You're constantly following up. You're constantly checking in. You're constantly, making sure they're getting their stuff done, whereas talent pushes you. I love number 5. I love number 5. Non-talent may not know where the existing bar is set or even what bar you are talking about, whereas a talent is constantly raising the bar. Non-talent doesn't care who they're spending time with and repels talent from them. Kind of talked about it before, whereas talent demands to be associated with talent. Non-talent will often talk, when they try to talk action and results, they can't back it up. I met with someone a few years ago. During the interview process, they were looking for a team leader opportunity. I said, what do you really love? And this is someone who managed for a traditional company for 15 years before coming to us as a team leader. I said, what do you really enjoy about being a manager or a team leader? She goes, well, I really enjoy going out there and recruiting top agents. I enjoy going out there and getting in business with top agents. I said, great. Who's the most successful agent you've ever recruited? I can't really think about them right now. And then later in the conversation, she talked about how much she loved coaching people. She loves helping people grow their business. I said, great. What's your greatest success story? That success story about that person you took from here to here. How did you affect them? Well, I really can't think of anyone off the top of my head. So that's an example. Non-talent will often know what to say, but when you dig in and ask them questions about giving you examples, they get lost a little bit. Does that make sense? Okay. So these are interesting. I'm going to ask for 3 volunteers here. If I can get 3 volunteers in just a second. There's 3 types of talent. There's potential talent. They have the knowledge, skills, personality, and culture. There's the emerging talent. They have the knowledge, skills, personality, and culture. They just haven't done the job yet, but they have done the job right before. Then you have proven. knowledge, skills, personality, culture with a track record of success. So when you're talking to people, you want to try to analyze what type of talent is this person. This is where I need my 3 volunteers. Can I have 3 people put their name in the chat box so I can call on you? I need you to read. Let me tell you what you're volunteering for first. Page 23, there's 3 sections. One starts with L, one starts with I, one starts with S. I want 3 people to read those 3 boxes. Can I get a volunteer? Don't all volunteer at once. Ariel, you're the best. Ariel, thank you for stepping up first. Luis Sanchez and Joe Koza, thank you. I got the 3. Rebecca, I'll save you for the next time. Let me actually stop the sharing here. Ariel, did I pronounce your name right, Ariel? You can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Awesome. Then can you read that box at the top of 23 that starts with looking?
Sure. Let me get to the page.
Luis Sanchez and Joe Kozo, get to page 23. We'll be ready for you in a minute. Ready when you are.
Okay, page 23. I'm reading the L, the first box.
Yep, the first box.
Looking for opportunities to build an even bigger business, Smokey took on the team leader role in Arlington, a market center in transition, with a new vision to become #1 in their market, then in the region, and finally in KW. Everyone laughed, but by starting from scratch with a revitalized training program and staff, within 6 years, the Market Center had achieved his vision. And the following year, Smokey went on to open 13 more Market Centers as an OP and become area director. He now holds the position of regional director.
So is that proven talent, potential talent, or emerging talent? That's an open question for everybody in the call, by the way. Would you call that proven, potential, or emerging? Feel free to throw it in the chat box if you want.
Proven.
Proven. Thank you, Viola. His previous career as a successful sales agent meant he had the necessary experience to succeed at a high level in the team leader role. So again, he had a track record in the industry that was a perfect fit for what they're doing there. So thank you, Ariel. Luis Sanchez, read the next box where it says in college.
In college, Smokey Garrett cowboyed in the rodeo. He was so talented, he won the National Cutting Horse Association's award for Rookie of the Year. His ambition was to ride professionally, but when he hurt his back, he turned his focus to his studies, graduating with a double major, business and marketing. He decided to go into real estate for a year, looking for opportunities to learn and grow professionally, as well as investment opportunities to start growing his wealth.
Awesome. Thank you, Luis Sanchez. Is that potential or emerging talent?
Potential.
Yeah, but potential. He had no work experience in this field. He succeeded at a high level in the field before this, but he hadn't really done anything in real estate. So again, as someone who hires, I could say if he succeeded at a high level in the rodeo, he should be able to succeed here. But again, it would just be potential because it wasn't industry relevant yet. And the third person I had come up, who was the third volunteer?
Joe Kozo.
Joe Kozo, thanks, buddy.
Hey, no problem.
That bottom one?
Sure. Smokey ended up loving real estate and stayed in the industry for the opportunity to live a big life. He was Rookie of the Year, and by his third year was 18th in his entire real estate franchise, selling 118 homes. By his fourth year, however, he was burnt out. He could see no path to the big life he had envisioned, other than to sell more and sell faster. Then he attended Quantum Leap with Gary Keller and joined Keller Williams Realty for the career-building opportunities. Joining the ALC and plugging into all the models and systems, he grew his team to 13, earned $1 million in GCI, and only worked 3.5 days per week.
So, proven potential or emerging?
Emerging.
Emerging. Yeah, so again, he was succeeding at a very high level in a role just one step away from the team leader. So again, as a rainmaker, if you could put these in order, you'd go the middle box to the lower box to the top box as the way he grew from potential talent to emerging talent to proven talent. So does that help kind of give you a picture of what those different descriptors of talent looks like? A little bit? Turn to page 25 in your book. Page 25 in your book. Let's really have some fun with this. This is gonna be an interactive part, so feel free to unmute and share or put in the chat box. Think about a time, think about your successful hires. Think about a time where you've hired someone that's been successful. What did you do in the hiring process to enable that success? What's something you've done while hiring someone in the past that created some success for you? What did you do in the process that led to that success? Anyone want to share?
Spend time up front, which is very daunting, but spend the time up front to train them on the things you want done the way you want them done.
Yep, without doubt. The time you spend up front is going to save you a lot of time on the other side. And that's the challenge with the career visioning process. This is about a 12 to 15 hour commitment up front with just that one person. It could be 30 to 40 hours to hire the right person. And people don't want to put in that time. But Amrita, you said, right, that time up front is going to help a lot down the road. Thank you. I said, Sinead Hennessy, set expectations. Phyllis Taylor, provide training. I love sending someone to training as part of the process. As part of the process. Before you hire them, send them to a training class and see how they come back with it. You know, did they learn anything or was it just more of the same stuff? So how someone responds to training is important. Spend a lot of time up front to train them and create videos for them to refer to. If you're not around, I love that, Ariel. Mary Beth, I can't reinforce that enough. Went deep with reference checking. Deep dive into career goals. What's that, Darren?
One thing I like to do with admins is get them to actually do some like examples of things I'm going to ask them to do, and then really see what type of level that they're really at. So if it's, you know, a flyer or just basic stuff, or it could be even more involved stuff, just to see, because anybody can say that they've done, you know, some sort of graphic design or they've done some sort of admin work. But when you give them real life examples, you know, when you ask them to say, hey, if you can do this, this, and this, send it back to me in 24 hours, you can really see their level of like execution.
So I love that, and I've done the same thing in the past. Create a PowerPoint on yourself, perhaps, or create a flyer. Here's my quick disclaimer, though, Darren. If you're going to ask someone to actually do something, be ready to pay them hourly for their time. There was a lawsuit a few years back where it was kind of determined that you couldn't make someone do something. Now, however, you could say, hey, do you have a flyer you've created in the past? Can you share a copy of that with me? Or do you have a PowerPoint you've created in the past? So 2 ways. Either ask them to share something with you that they've already created. If you're having them to create something new, we're going to talk about that later in the course as well. Be ready to pay them hourly for it.
Makes sense.
William ran a sales floor for a car dealership. I love it. Most successful ones were always the ones who were able to tell me exactly what they wanted to make in their first 12 months. Again, they had a vision for what they wanted to accomplish. They were goal oriented. So awesome. Think about the hires who failed. Think about the hires who failed. Those are the more painful ones to think about. What did you do in the hiring process that caused that failure? Now, to Mary Beth's point, I think one of the biggest mistakes we find is that we don't check references. And references could save us a lot of time if we check them properly. What are some of the things that you miss in the hiring process that could lead to that? Ask thought process questions. Also ask what they have been number one in the past. I love that, Dana. Without a doubt. What are some things that we've done that during the process that blew up in our faces? Some of those mistakes we made. I'm sure we've got some horror stories here. Adele.
Yeah, it used to be that you use the DISC, you use the test, and that was the end of it. Or you use the AVA, one of those things. But what I've learned in the success and the failure is to use all the tools, tools, their MO, their big why, their natural behavior, their ability to adapt. I have tremendous leaders that are Ds, and I have some that are S's, and they'll say, oh no, an S cannot do the job. We have some of those successful S personalities. So getting out of your limited belief and going ahead, and I just use all the tools, master them, use them, keep on going, that kind of deal.
Well, it's not just any one tool. It's a couple of different tools here, right?
Right.
I see some comments in here. I just want to hit some of these. I think they're worthwhile. Hire out of desperation, hire out of need, hiring too fast are all things that can make mistakes there for sure. Sold them. And we're going to talk about that a lot during the KPA process. You're not here to sell them on anything. You're here to get to know them and determine whether they're the best fit for the role. You don't want to be talking much. They should be doing the bulk of the talking. Hiring out of need. Hire friends. Avoid friends and family. Avoid friends and family. Very awkward to get out of business with a friend or a family member. Actually, when we talk about lead generating for resumes, lead generating for candidates, a lot of people want to go to Facebook first. I'm going to talk to you about being careful on that one. Because even if it's a referral by someone that you know, it could be awkward when you say no to that person. So we'll talk more about that later. Carly, what's the best questions to ask when talking to a reference? We'll get there. When we get to the reference checking, I'm going to give you the exact process to follow for reference checking and 10 questions to ask. Dom, comment? Dom, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah. Good talk. Look,
you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that hey, Lou? That's Lou. You're not Dom. What's going on, man?
No. I'm sorry. We're on the same screen. So one of the things I've learned going through the process is, like someone just said, hiring out of need. And I noticed, one thing is, shortcutting the process or trying to make a person fit a role and missing the signs as you're going through the hiring process. You're hearing things that you're kind of trying to tie a story to and like passing over or glossing over it, trying to get to the next step in the process. And I've done it myself in the past. I tried to make a person fit, and it's always, if you shortcut the process or try to make someone fit a job or a role and miss signs and don't check references, it turns out really bad. It's never worked out. If you shortcut the process, don't check references, and try to make someone fit into a role.
Follow the process. We talk about follow the model in FSO. Follow the process. Without a doubt, shortcutting typically blows up in the face. I love what Luis Sanchez put in here. Have you Googled them or checked them on Facebook? Check out their social media. Check out their social media. You'll learn a lot about someone based on how they portray themselves in social media. So good stuff. Good stuff. Any other thoughts, comments on this topic? Stephanie, to answer your question, will these videos be available later? I'm not sure yet. It depends if I say anything inappropriate on the video. If I say something inappropriate, they may not be available. If I can make them available, I'm definitely hoping to. I'm definitely hoping to give you these videos as a resource for you after the session, but I haven't decided 100% yet. I also don't want to tell you I am, then have you check out and not want to be part of the call, because that's a very boring way to spend 2.5 hours a day. All right. All right, let's jump back into this. Make sure I use a PowerPoint to keep myself on track more than anything else. And sometimes it works better than other times. There it goes. Okay, we talked about this. I don't think we need to go through these. A lot of you have been in trainings, but I just do want to talk about there's 3 types of people in a training class. The prisoner has to be here, doesn't want to be there. I don't think anyone on this call is a prisoner. You wouldn't have spent $99 and put time aside 2.5 hours a day for 4 days if you don't want to be here. I don't think we have any vacationers here either, because it's summertime and beautiful outside. Viola, I wish I was with you right now outside in that yard. So I don't think we have any vacationers here, because it'd be very easy for you to go on vacation. So I'm going to assume that the bulk of the people here are explorers. I want this to be interactive. It's via Zoom. I want us to use the chat box. I want us to talk. I want us to interact. I want it to be fun. What I've come to find about Keller Williams training is the biggest aha you get out of this will probably not be in the book. Will probably not be in the book. It may be a comment that someone else shares, maybe something I go off script with. So by being here and being engaged and being an explorer, it gives you the chance to get the most out of this that you possibly can. So far, we've now been through the introduction. Do we have any ahas so far? Ahas so far. Now, for those of you that don't know, an aha is something you wrote down. That's a good idea. I like that. I hadn't thought about that. Any ahas at this point?
Michael, just to the talent part that we were just talking about, is I think it wasn't until a few years where I personally realized that talent surrounding me gave me more energy. And
Yes.
the other part of it, though, is that when you have talent come into your world, it could be very uncomfortable as a rainmaker, as our ego might creep in a little, as it's our show. And I just urge everybody to understand, like that's a growth phase you'll go through, to then recognize if you have talent sitting alongside you, you'll grow so much faster. So it'll be much more fulfilling and rewarding. But I have seen rainmakers and leaders mess up where they have talent and they just can't make room for them because it's just uncomfortable.
Well, and that's what a lot of the traditional world is. You know, the traditional brokerage world, those vice presidents put people in the roles that they can manage. And then not that they're fearful of them. Whereas in our world, you want to say, hey, can this person put me out of my job? Because for you to grow, you've got to replace yourself in different jobs. So, you know, out of the gate while building a team, you want to hire someone that's better than you at the admin job. Then you want to hire someone that's better at you at the buyer job. So again, you constantly want to out-hire yourself. Thank you, Mary Beth. A lot of great comments in the chat. If you want to look at some ahas there, providing leads is totally okay as a value prop. Yep. Split you offer is directly related to the value you offer. Samantha Perlman, love that. You'll get better talent as much as bigger the business. Awesome. Any other thoughts, comments, questions you want to make before we move on? Cool.
I have one, Michael.
Mike.
I like the idea of really knowing what your worth is, knowing your what your hourly expense is. It allows you to really wrap your head around letting go of some of those tasks that you feel like you're good at, but you understand that if you're 10 times better than this person, if they come in and do it half as good as you, you're still getting a value out there.
Well, without a doubt, and I was taught a long time ago that if you're doing something, you either love to do it or you have no one else to do it for you. I use this example with the lawnmower. I moved from a 60 by 100 lot to an acre about 7 or 8 years ago. And but my 60 by 100 lot, I would go out there with a lawnmower and I would go and I'd mow the entire lawn in about 45 minutes. Well, I moved to the 1 acre and I got out there with my push lawnmower on Saturday morning. At the end of the day, Sunday, 2 days later, I was finally done mowing the lawn. So I said, okay, I can't spend 2 days on my lawn. My time is too valuable. So I went to Home Depot and grunted a little bit around the tractors. I bought myself a tractor, 48-inch mowing deck, 3 baggers, 19 horsepower, all the bells and whistles. And I went out there the next week and I mowed that lawn in about 45 minutes. After doing that for a few months, I said to myself, this is still too much time. 45 minutes is still too much time to take on this task. My time is more valuable. If I'm home, I want to be with my kids. So I went and hired a landscaper because, again, there was nothing enjoyable to me about mowing the lawn. So everything you do, whether it's in business or in your personal life, ask yourself, are you doing it because you love it or are you doing it because you have no one else to do it? And if you have no one else to do it, go out and find that person, hire that person. That's what this is all about. Awesome. Thanks for that cool hack, Dana. Appreciate that. Yeah, the chat notes, bottom right-hand corner. So for those that missed that, you can save this chat box in the bottom right-hand corner. Hit those 3 buttons and press save that file. Question for you guys. Mary Beth, I know you've done a lot of these. I love your input. 2.5 hours. Do we take a 5 or 7 minute break as part of this 2.5 hours, or do we go right through the 2.5 hours? What do we think? My concern is losing some of you if I take it. What's that? All right, right through. We'll keep going. If you need to take a break, feel free to.
We just did MREA models last week, and we did have a 5-minute break, and we just started right back on time, and it gave everybody that go get a coffee. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys vote. Hey, Emily, can we put a poll up real quick? Let's have some fun with this. I love Zoom. Jeanette, you're already taking a break. I love it. We're gonna do a quick poll. If you got on late, you may miss this. We're gonna do a quick poll, break or no break in this. And again, the break won't be more than 5 minutes. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. I love it. You posting them? I'm going to keep going until we get that poll up. Then we'll let the poll make the decision. We're a democratic society here. All right. I'm sharing my screen again. Share screen. All right. Thanks for the great ahas, guys. I really appreciate that. Ahas let me know that we're on track and learning something. So thank you for that. I got it. I just wasted 2 minutes. Thank you, Nancy. I definitely did. So this next chapter talks about personality. So what is personality? Individual patterns of behavior and thinking. You know, we used to just think so much about behavior that we kind of miss the way they think. So personality is about how people behave and think. Behavior is about how they act, whereas thinking is about how a person prefers to process ideas and problems. So let's kind of go through this. This is always interesting how this comes up. This first one, skills, experience, education, or training. I don't think it came up. Is that personality or is that not personality? Skills, experience, education, or training.
Not.
Is that personality or is not? That is not. That is not personality. Ultimately, you can learn those things. Personality is more ingrained. The way someone processes ideas or problems. Is that personality or is that not personality? That is personality. Check the mark. Is personality is their behavior and the way they think and process challenges. Is that how many came up? Wow, we have 48 votes to take the break and 35 votes not to take the break. Some of you might not have gotten the poll come up based on when you came on the call. So today, because we spent time talking about that, I'm going to motor through this next hour. But tomorrow, I'm going to put a 5-minute break in between, just give us a chance to stretch our legs. Intelligence. Is intelligence personality or is it not personality? Intelligence is not personality. The way a person acts and behaves, is that personality or is that not personality? Yeah, what page am I on? I'm on page 31. I'm on page 31. The way a person acts and behaves is personality. Value, beliefs, ethics, or motivations. Personality or not personality. That is not personality. That is not personality, but put a note in the box. It is part of culture. Values, beliefs, ethics, or motivations is part of culture. So that determines whether or not they're a cultural fit for your organization. Barry, we will get that salary sheet emailed out to everybody. Is personality a reason not to hire someone? Is saying the personality is not a fit for the role. Is that a reason not to hire someone? It is not. It is not a reason not to hire someone. It is. Oh, look at you guys. You guys are aggressive. Definitely. Yes, yes, yes. As we go through the KPA, know that personality and behavior. So again, personality is behavior and thinking traits. That is not a reason. Let me show you a quick story. When I first took the AVA, some people believed if your AVA wasn't a match, you don't hire. Well, the first time I took the AVA, it was administered the wrong way. It wasn't set up the right way. I wasn't introduced to it the right way. And needless to say, my first AVA was a complete train wreck, where they actually came back and said, this person is emotionally distressed. So for those of you that know me, you can laugh now. So if my first OP said that personality is not a reason to hire someone, and she was using my first AVA as a way to judge, thanks Mike, a way to judge my behavior, she would never have hired me. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So again, know that personality is part of the process. Thanks, Luis Sanchez. Personality is part of the process, but it is not the whole process. All right. So 3 strengths of personality. Engagement. People who use their strength every day are 6 times more likely to be engaged. And I think that's where some of you are coming from when you say no, fire, definitely not. Because the fact is, if their personality and the job is a perfect fit, they're going to succeed at a much higher level with less stress. However, If I've got an extremely talented person who's knocked it out of the park with everything they've ever done in their life, I wouldn't let personality hold me back. But again, if their personality is a fit, they will be higher engaged. They will be more productive. True step. Simply learning their strengths makes employees 7.8% more productive and engaged. And they will be healthier and happier. So again, personality is part of the process, but it's not the make or break in the process.
But you can't teach personality.
You can't teach personality, and you can't change personality.
Correct. So are you
change
basing that decision on the fact that the KPA or whatever tool you're using to assess if they're the right fit or not had a error in assessment? Or
well, I'll give you a for instance. Shut the door. Okay. I'll give you for instance. I did this this behavior assessment of a top rainmaker a few years ago, and on the old scale, it was a -1 to a 1 was the measure. So if you were between a 0.6 and a 1, you were considered a high match. If you were a -1, run away, hide, don't go anywhere near this person. So I had this rainmaker, so he came out as a -0.98. So again, just to kind of make the 1 to -1, he was here, 0.98. He was about as far away from a match of a rainmaker as I have ever met in my life. And so I'm talking to Bain Hennion, who was corporate consulting at the time, and I said, hey, this person, how do I help this person succeed? Because they're 0.98, they're not a fit. And I was talking about a $40 million producer. He's like, well, where's the behavior for the $40 million producer? I said, this is it. So this person, who is not a fit to be a real estate agent from a behavior standpoint, sold $92 million worth of real estate last year. Is this making sense? Even though he's not a fit behaviorally, he works a lot more hours. He works 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. He doesn't like sellers, and he loves buyers. He's succeeding at a high level, despite, and he's been doing this, by the way, for 40 years successfully. He's been succeeding at a high level as a realtor, despite being a poor behavioral match. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, there's some people that I've hired because there were more things that measure. We'll talk about this in the process. There's 6 pieces we're looking at. So you want to look at all the 6 pieces together.
Got it.
Joe DeVito, you made a great point. Behavior is a lot less useful for someone under 30 years old. Studies show that people shape their behavior until they're about 30 to 32 years old. So someone with behavior at 24 could look very different than at 30. So again, behavior also modifies with us. Which are the 2 most effective ways to predict personality? So again, what are the 2 most effective ways to predict personality? Ask personality-based questions, live with them for a long time, or give a personality assessment. So the most effective way to understand personality is to ask personality-based questions and to live with them for a long time. So those 2 things will give you the most information you need about predicting their personality. Getting a personality assessment by nature is the least. However, in a hiring process, so go back here. In the hiring process, I'll go back a step. In the hiring process, you can't live with them for a long time. You're not gonna be able to do this during the hiring process. So after the hire, you'll get to know more about their personality over time. During the process, you can ask personality-based questions. And at the start of the process, you can give the personality assessment. So again, we use these tools as a way of giving you as much information as we possibly can to make an informed hire. There's always a risk to hiring. There's always a risk to hiring. Christine Whiteman, wouldn't it be based on their ability to adapt as opposed to a full personality fit? Without a doubt, adaptability is an interesting piece that was brought into the KPA, where someone who's a lower fit behaviorally but has a higher ability to adapt, that could take some of this into account. So again, in the process, we want to start with a personality assessment, ask personality-based questions, because we won't know until after the fact whether or not any of our assumptions that we made during the process were accurate. see beyond the four numbers. So again, this is how the KPA is scored. In the book, we're on page 37. In the book, we're on page 37. So every one of the thinking and behavior traits are measured on a scale of 0 to 10. All this means is on this scale, this is 0, this is 10. You got these lines, right? 0 to 3, then it goes 4 to 6, 7 to 10. If someone's on this scale, this is more fixed. This is very fixed. This is flexible. So if someone's scoring out in the middle, you know from an adaptability standpoint, they can be flexible. Someone that's a 5 can be a 3 or be an 8, not a big deal. If someone's a 10 and the role says they should be a 1, that's a big gap to cover. We can't see if you're writing on the board. So again, all I did on the board, and maybe red's on the best color, is anyone that's on the lower side, 0, 1, 2, or 3, this is a very fixed part of their behavior. 7, 8, 9, 10, a very fixed part of their behavior. This part is more flexible, I wrote in here. So again, if someone's a 5 and the role calls for them to be a 3, not a big deal. Someone can adjust from a 5 to a 3. If someone's a 9 and the role says they should be a 1, well, that's a big gap. This is going to create stress. Do we want to hire someone in the middle? Great question, Jennifer. There's going to be some parts of the behavior process that say you want them as a 4, 5, 6 or an 8, 9, 10. So where you want people to score in this range is different for every role. We currently have behavior models, personality models for about 25 different roles in our system. And you'll see more about that when we go through your KPAs tomorrow. You'll see more about that in your KPAs tomorrow. So again, this is called normative scoring. So I just want to give you the concept that the left and the right are very rigid, very fixed. The middle has more flexibility with it. So again, with this, trails closer to the extreme are more fixed. They're less likely to change. And again, this will make a lot more sense as we start delving into the KPA. Again, things in the center are a little bit more flexible. So here are the main behavior traits. So again, personality is behavior and thinking. So there's 7 traits in the behavior side of it. The first one is assertiveness, sociability, responsiveness, and structure. So for those of us that remember the AVA, that's kind of vector 1, vector 2, vector 3, vector 4. Then we added these other traits, which are adaptability, intensity, and optimism, which can never be measured before. And I think those are 3 of the things that I like the most about the KPA versus the AVA. Those primary traits tend to have the most impact on the job, whereas the other one adds fuel. You know, it adds fuel and kind of powers them a little bit more. So I'm going to explain to you briefly each of these. Assertiveness. So someone who's to the left side of the scale tends to achieve goals through cooperation and good planning, whereas someone on the right side is determined, persistent, and direct. Someone on the lower side is conservative in action. They're a little slower to move into action. When they're faced with obstacles, they'll tend to stop and reassess before moving forward again, and they'll typically be receptive of actions of others. Whereas again, on the high side, the person is willing to move forward, take action, solve problems. They may be a little confrontational, stubborn, or disagreeable. So let me ask you, with the typical admin, with the executive assistant, where do you think you're going to want them to score out on this? On the higher side of the assertiveness or the lower side of the assertiveness?
Higher side.
Yeah, it might be right for you. I believe I should pull it up. It's probably more toward the lower side here because you want someone that achieves goals through cooperation, good planning, a little bit more conservative. Now, I think it's probably somewhere between a 3 and a 5, a 3 or a 6. I definitely want to hire an executive assistant that scores up as a 9 or a 10. because they may be confrontational, stubborn, or disagreeable at times. So, and Jennifer, that's a great point. Does it depend on how we score ourselves? And this is something that I do with DISC quite a bit. You want to bring yourself into the mix here. So for instance, I'll come back to that, Jennifer. I'll come back to that when we get into actually looking at the job profile for one of these roles. Sociability, someone that's on the high side of the sociability tends to be more people-oriented. Someone on the low side tends to be more task-oriented. So again, a high side, driven to interact with others, prefers not to work alone, tends to have a wide circle of contacts and acquaintances. On the left side, tends to be a little bit more introspective, tends to interact with others a little bit less and find long periods of social interaction stressful. Low sociability usually does not indicate unfriendliness, but a preference of fewer social contacts. So if I've got someone here and they're disagreeing, I might ask them a question of, hey, if you had a choice between going to a huge party where you're networking with a bunch of people or a quiet dinner with 3 or 4 personal friends, which would you prefer? The person on the left side of this graph is going to prefer a small group with some friends, whereas someone on the right side of this will enjoy a cocktail party of sorts. Jessica would take a high score on the aggressiveness. Tara, we're not taking a break. We're going to power right through to 1 o'clock today. Tomorrow, we are going to take about a 5 to 7 minute break in between. So responsiveness, someone who's on the low side of this is calm, steady, calm, and patient, works at a slower, more composed pace, tends to internalize their feelings and opinions. Someone on the higher side likes fast pace, likes excitement, is very impatient, prefers an exciting, hectic work environment, expresses themselves outwardly rather than holding in their feelings. Guess which side of the graph I score on here? Anyone want to guess? High or low? I see people probably looking at their KPIs right now and measuring their KPIs to these. The structure, again, someone on the high side likes order. Someone on the low side likes a little bit more flexibility. And then we get into those 3 other traits. Those 3 other traits are adaptability. So someone high on this is very accommodating, very diplomatic, very tactful, wants to be on positive terms, very concerned about other people's feelings and thoughts. Someone on the low side tends to be a little bit more independent, that doesn't really take other people's thoughts and feelings into account, tends to be more independent-minded, less concerned about their impact on others. So get adaptability, intensity. Someone who's hot gets frustrated at a higher level. Someone who's cool will be a little bit more calm and reserved. Yes, you will definitely refer to these a lot in the hiring process. Again, if you're looking at an executive assistant, you probably want someone more to the left side of this graph, someone that's a little bit cooler versus hotter. This was interesting, this one. Optimism. You know, is someone overly optimistic or a little bit more skeptical? Again, this is just a way for you to get to know this person, because you've got to make an informed decision with very little information. So these 7 pieces will give you some different aspects of their behavior and personality to look at. Any question on these 7 behavior pieces? The 7 behavior traits? We're going to review these a lot over the next few days, so I'm kind of giving you a big picture overview right now. And then, in addition to the 7 behavior traits, we also have these 4 thinking traits, which make absolutely no sense to me sometimes, but you'll see where they score out. The first one is logical problem solving. Do they want a methodical, process-oriented approach to solving problems, or more of a throw a bunch of stuff at the wall and see what happens? If it were a possible DOO versus an admin, you would want high, correct? Barry, on which trait? On which trait, Barry?
No, I was saying on the assertive, et cetera, you know, it seems that if you're looking for an admin, you're leaning more towards that low scale. But if you were looking for someone that was an admin transitioning to director of ops, you'd want them in the middle to the right.
Absolutely right. You want a director of operations or COO to be much more higher aggressive, whereas an admin might be a little bit less aggressive. So without a doubt, for every role you hire, they're going to score differently on each of these scales.
Yeah, and if there was somebody that you were looking, again, like a potential talent that fit in on the admin in the medium to low side with the ability to go high, would indicate whether or not they might have the ability to grow into a director of ops. Would you agree or no?
Sure. Yeah, without a doubt. If you're looking to hire someone for future growth, you might adjust these a little bit. You know, so you might hire someone that's a little bit more aggressive, but know that that aggressive person is only going to be able to exist in that lower aggressive role for a shorter period of time. So I hired an MCA once that was a little higher on the scale. So I knew that they were only going to be in the MCA role for 2 to 3 years before they get bored with it and have to find a different opportunity for that person. So if you're looking to have someone that grows with you, you might adjust where they land on the scale for future growth.
Right. Thank you.
Ariel Self, I almost hired an admin who wanted to transition into an agent in the next year or so. Would it be worth it to hire her, knowing I have to train another admin in the future all over again? Here's the thing. Every time I hire someone, I'm looking at as a 3 to 5 year hire. If this person doesn't see themselves in that role for at least 3 to 5 years, I'm going to be skeptical about hiring them, because you don't want to be going through this every year. So I've also find people say that, you know, they want to be a realtor down the way that don't end up being a realtor down the way because they realize how hard it is. So, you know, I want it to be a 3-year commitment if I'm hiring somebody. Do you recommend taking KPA every few years? No. The KPA to me is most valid the first time you take it. You know, now again, if you've got someone that takes it in their 20s and wants to take it again in their early 30s, possibly. But really the behavior shouldn't change over time. There's only 3 things that change someone's behavior. Someone's got to go through a hostile act in order to have them change their behavior. So oftentimes the 3 things that will lead someone's behavior to change is death, divorce, or childbirth, giving birth. And I've witnessed 3 children's birth, so I know that's a very hostile act. God bless women. I don't know how you do it. But so those 3 things is what may cause a behavior to change. Otherwise, someone's behavior at 30 is going to be pretty similar to what the behavior will be at 40. So logical problem solving, we kind of touched on that. Rapid problem solving tends to just know the answer, good with quick seat of the pants problem solving situations, whereas someone that's lower on this may prefer a more logical approach. Would you be able to explain why some positions that seem to be similar can have such drastically different numbers, such as EA, Ops Manager, 0.77? Let's come back to that, Joe. When we get to looking at an actual KPA, let's be prepared to put that up on the screen and we look at that particular question a little bit more directly.
Michael.
The third, yeah.
Mary Beth here. Just one thing that I also realized was sometimes, and one of my hires years back said this to me, like, I just want to do the job you're hiring me for, because we are such visionaries, we are big thinkers. We're thinking, what's the next thing they can do, and try to satisfy a growth path for them. And for some people, they're just looking at us like the job that they're getting hired for is the opportunity that they want right now. So sometimes we oversell where they should go and get them confused.
Well, without doubt, I mean, there's the 80-20 rule for a reason. I mean, not everyone's in the 20%. You know, some people just like to find a job that fits their personality, be there for 10 or 15 years, you know, come in, make their 40 hours a week and go. People that grow are very different. You know, because every time you grow, you go through stress, you go through anxiety. It takes a lot more. So without a doubt, let's not push everyone to grow. Let's find the people that want to grow and put them in positions that will help them grow. Love that. Great point, Mary Beth. Spatial visualization. This is interesting when you took it. For those of you that took the KPA, I was kind of on my computer looking at the boxes different ways to try to figure out what it all meant. But the way I look at spatial visualization is someone can look at attacking a problem from a bunch of different ways. So someone who's high on this, I equate it to a chicken. If you've ever been on a farm or watched a show about a farm, I look at the farmer come out and throw a bunch of the seed down, and all the chickens come to eat the seed, to feed. There's a little chicken that goes to try to get in, but they can't get in. So they come out, they go around a different spot to try to get in, they can't get in, they come out, they go yet a different way. So that little chicken will find 3 or different ways to get into the group to be able to feed. That's someone who's high on a spatial visualization. They can look at a problem from 2 or 3 different angles and try to assess it, understand it, so they can figure out the best way to accomplish the problem or solve the problem. The last one on this is vocabulary. Are they quick to pick up new ideas and understand new concepts? Or are they a little bit more deliberate in understanding and processing new ideas? So again, those are the four thinking traits that come out in the KPA. Any questions on the 4 thinking traits? So you'll see, I think Barry mentioned the mini cheat sheet. Here's the, very good, Ryan, thanks, bud. Here's the cheat sheet. Here's the quick breakdown of each of these different things and that. Don't think you've got to come back to the book. Every time you run a KPA, this will be in it around page 9 and 10. So this is your quick reminder of what each of these 11 different trait definitions are. So there's 2 types of processes we're going through here. We want to assess and verify the personality. Assess and verify. So we've got 2 different tools. The question we ask ourselves, are we recruiting someone? And typically this is perhaps recruiting someone for your downline, or perhaps you maybe just do this with the buyer's agent versus career visioning someone. Career visioning is a considerably longer process. Recruiting, you're selling them on a concept. Career visioning, you're trying to see if they're a fit for what you're looking to accomplish. So, you know, what we found, and we're going to come back to those 2, recruiting versus career visioning, quite a bit. So where's your time better spent? So when you're looking at hiring someone, are you better spent preparing and analyzing the person and only getting to know them a little bit? Or are you better suited to spend a lot of time getting to know them and less time preparing or analyzing? Which way, where do you want to spend your time when you're looking at hiring someone? Do you want to spend your time preparing for the meeting or spend the time getting to know somebody? Getting to know someone, I hope, is your thought on that. And that's what's cool. Thank you, Samantha. That's what's cool about this process. With the AVA, I would spend an hour poring over the AVA to determine what questions I was going to ask the person and what I needed to know. And then spend, you know, a half hour on the KPA, on the AVA. With this one, you're spending all the time getting to know them. You're just following through. The KPA is going to give you the questions that you want to ask to know them at a high level. So again, there's 2 types of assessments. There's the recruiting assessment, which is the KPA assessment. That takes, the personal assessment takes 10 minutes to complete. The job fit assessment takes 50 minutes to complete. So for those of you that have taken the KPA, did it take you 10 minutes or did it take you an hour? For those that took it, did it take you 10 minutes or did it take you an hour? If it took you 10 minutes, it took you an hour, good. It took Samantha an hour. If it took you 10 minutes, we might not have given you the right assessment. That was the personal assessment. The KPA is a little more complete. Carly Ringer, why do you like this better than the disc? Depends what I'm looking at it for, Carly. There's some things I like about the disc a heck of a lot more. But if I'm looking to hire someone, I think this gives us a lot more information than the disc does. And let's be honest, for a smart person, the disc is very manipulative. If you gave me a disc, I can make myself look however I think you want me to look. I can come off as a high C, a high S, a high I, or a high D because it's easy to manipulate. Because if someone's hiring, they would try to give you what they think you want. And with the disc, I had to manipulate it a lot over the years. So I think those first 4 thinking behavior traits are very similar to the disc, but it's a lot harder for them to manipulate this. I do not have them do both. I haven't done a disc in years just because I like to stay with one tool and commit to one tool. So again, the personal assessment, the 10-minute assessment is very similar to the disc. You'll see a lot of comparisons to the disc, and the 15-minute is a lot more robust. Does that answer your question, Carly? I hope. So again, the value in recruiting, for me, I can understand what drives them a little bit. I can strengthen how I communicate with them. I can build a relationship. For the value to the recruit, it helps them understand how their behavior impacts what they're doing and affects their relationship. So again, the KPA in recruiting is very similar to what the DISC used to be. Again, this is what comes up in the personal report. Again, this is very similar to what a lot of us saw back in the DISC at that time. So it gives you a summary. Again, at this point, do they have, I'm gonna unclick for a second. Who has a KPA assessment in front of them? Do you guys have your KPA assessment chat? Have you taken your KPA assessments? All right, so as we look at these, we're going to forward out to you some samples. Can you send that email out with all the samples out and all those other attachments? We're going to send you out some samples of the KPA, Madison Offenhauser's actually. And again, if you haven't taken yours, please take some time today to work through your assessment because I want to kind of go through and show you what's in these assessments. That's the part we're getting to here. So you know kind of what the makeup of a typical assessment is. I'm actually go back. Let me go back a step. On page 57, if you jump to page 57 real quick in your workbook. On page 57, it actually gives you some scripts that you can use in order to set up the KPA assessment. And in this, if you look on this page, you'll actually see, hey, I really enjoyed getting to know you. I'd like to share a tool with you that we use here at Keller Williams that can help us get to know each other better. So again, if you're looking to find someone to recruit or hire, you're going to want to set up the KPA assessment the right way. So on page 57, it gives you a little bit of a script. For the bulk of the people on this call, I'm not going to delve into that one because I assume, and please feel free to put it in the chat box, are you taking this course because you want to build a team and perhaps hire an assistant, or are you taking this course to build your downline? Are you looking to do this to build your downline and build a team? If you can throw in the chat box your thoughts on that. Team, both, team. Okay, we're in the right room. So when I get into the script on page 57, that tends to lead more toward team leaders. So if you're building your downline, you're probably not going to send the KPA assessment out. Your team leader is going to do that as part of the recruiting process. So it's important for you to know we're going to gear most of this more toward that team approach, finding and hiring talent, finding and hiring executive assistants. So again, not saying you can't use it to recruit, but the page on 57 would be how you would use it to recruit someone for your downline. You don't see that script on page 57?
Page 59.
Page 59?
Yeah.
Thank you. So if I do give the wrong page, someone call me out on that. I still work off of one of the old ones because that's where a lot of my notes are in that old session. Emily just emailed you the documents. So if you have access to your computer, which I assume you do because you guys are looking at me through a computer. Yeah, that was a real joke. Thank you, Christine, the one person that laughed on the call. I appreciate you. If you can open up your computer real quick, I want you to download one of the assessments, one of the reports, because I want to give you kind of an anatomy of what's in it. So again, on that email, you're going to see two different reports. You're going to see a personal report, and you're going to see a job fit report. In the personal report, going back to this. That's probably a big email, so it might take a minute. Every personal report has these parts to it. It's got the summary, which is the 5 behavior traits. It has the behavior strengths. So we'll actually give you a description of each of the behavior strengths and what the dominant traits are. It's going to give you a description of their operating style, how they work, their descriptive review, and the definitions. So have you gotten that email yet? And if not, she also just loaded it in the chat box. You can download it from the chat box if you want as well. So do me a favor. Let's spend 2 minutes. I want you to open up a personal report. a personal report, just so you can get familiar with the different sections in the personal report. The cool thing about the personal report is really a selling tool. You know, if you could send this personal report to a seller before you met with them, you go in understanding a lot more of how their personality and their behavior works, and you'll be able to adjust your style to them. So the KPA personal report is really designed more as a sales tool than a hiring tool, which is why I like the job fit report for the hiring purpose. So we can just go back to this. So again, if you have your KPA personal report, you can take a look at that and kind of review that. You can actually do that after the call as well. What you'll find is I'm not going to take a lot of the time to do these little exercises, because this is how we're going to condense it to fit into 5 2.5 hour sessions. So please make a point to take a look at your personal report of the KPA and review that. So when you go with the KPA and career visioning, so again, the personal report was about recruiting. When you use the KPA and the career visioning, the biggest thing you get is a job fit match. You don't get a job fit match in the personal report. You get a job fit match in the career vision report. So what it actually allows you to see is that first one, top left. The personality profile and the job are very different. They're not a great match, or they're a better match, or they're a best match. So how well do they lay over their personal profile with a job fit match? That's the real benefit of the career visioning tool. It'll give you a ranking on a scale of 0 to 100 of how good of a fit they'll be for that particular job. It'll actually give you this. So again, if you've got that second one, can you put the job fit report up there too? Did you put it in the chat box? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to scroll down. So the KPA job fit report gives you this, which the personal report does not give. It actually gives you a score. So we were talking about before. If you take a look at, you can see on the screen, take a look at adaptability. Adaptability. For this particular role, they actually want the person to be scored between a 2 and a 5 in adaptability. For optimism, that you want the person to be between a 3 and a 6. So for each of these roles, it's not high or low. For this particular role, they actually want the intensity to be high. They want the vocabulary to be high. They want the responsiveness to be high. But some of these other ones, they actually want the structure to be low. For this particular job, they don't want the person to rely too much on structure. So again, you'll see for every job, it's going to have a very different job fit report. And with the job fit report, actually will show you how good of a match the person is for their job. Now, keep in mind, I want to reiterate, if you're looking at your KPA and it says you're a medium or a low match, please don't get bothered by that. Whether someone succeeds or not isn't in direct proportion to the job fit report. It's more about their resilience, their work ethic. People will succeed at different levels. What this will show you, if someone comes up as a low match, all it may say is they may have to work a little bit harder to succeed at a high level because their personality is a little bit different than the personality for that job. So I've had people get to this part, pull up their KPA and say, oh my God, I'm a low match. I'm going to fail. I'm not going to be successful. Again, this doesn't determine success. This determines how much energy you may need to put into something in order to succeed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We okay? Okay. Again, this is an example of someone that's a low fit, a low match. Again, doesn't mean they can't succeed. It just means that they might need to go through a little bit more energy in order to be successful. So again, if you take a look at your job fit report, these are some of the areas you'll see in the job fit report.
Michael, with the assertiveness off that far, would you advise to really question deep about that? And I mean, energy is not something that, if they don't have it, it's not going to just get created unless something major is like wooing them.
Yeah, well, and here's the challenge on this role. Depends on what this role is. If this role is an OP or a team leader, someone who scores off 3 on the assertiveness scale, that could be a problem for them because then they're going to have a challenge with conflict. They'll avoid conflict. They'll avoid the hard conversations. So it all depends on the role in this particular report. If I'm looking at this for like a leadership position that's that far off, that would be a concern. You know, if it's for perhaps a listing assistant that might want high assertiveness, could be less of an issue than an OP or a team leader. So without a doubt, Mary Beth, each one of these, you look at the job fit report for that person and that role in order to determine whether that's a deal breaker.
Yeah, and I'll typically go in knowing how far off I might want to go in this specific role. Like this is a trait I have to have in that role. So that when I'm liking the person, I'm not going to adjust myself to say, well, I can help them, and it's not that far off, which I see often.
And if I'm looking at someone that's this far off for assertiveness, I'm going to really get into the thinking traits quite a bit. How intelligent are they? I might ask the question, how long do you have to fail at something before you succeed? Or how long have you failed at something before you succeed? Because there are some people that are highly intelligent that while they may be off, they can lift themselves up for a period of time to have that conversation. They might be able to go through fierce conversations and plan for that conflict conversation. So they can learn how to work outside of this. You know, my assertiveness is only about a 6. So I'm outside of the scale on this. I have to go into one of those conversations and plan for that conversation in order to be successful at it because it doesn't come naturally to me. So again, doesn't mean I can't succeed at that. It just means I need to know when I go into conflict, I'm going to have to spend a lot more time preparing for that in order to succeed in that situation. Joe DeVito, let's say someone is applying for a particular role and they are off the role. Can you get the report to be rewritten for the role? So Joe, love this question. When someone takes the KPA, it automatically creates 25 different reports for you. So if they're a mismatch for that role, it structures the report in such a way that it helps them self-discover they're a mismatch for the role. Whereas if they're a high match for a different role, you can pull that out. So let me show you an example real quick. Let me see how this is going to work. Emily, do you have the KPA login? I'm going to try something here real quick. We'll see if it works. All right. I'm actually going to go from my screen and share this. I'm actually going to log in. I'm going to better sharing that screen. All right. Can you share that screen for me? I'm going to show you something here. So you'll need your market center's help with this, but let's take, who wants to be my example who I have in here is the question. Just pull it myself. Am I in there? Nope. Let's go.
Have my...
Let me see if you're.
You can use mine, Michael.
I'm not sure if you're in this particular system. We'll use Aaron's. Let's use Aaron's. This will be fun. So again, I'm not getting into the behavior profile, but I wanted to Joe's point. If you, I'm not showing the actual report. Don't worry. So if you scroll down here, scroll down this list here. So you can actually see here. Stop. It shows the match for all these different roles. So I can go and pull up a report that she's a 0.75 match on. She's actually a medium match for my job. So this will give you 15, 20 different reports in this. So the report I'll pull for one role will look a little bit different from a report for a different role. They're just going so much trouble. Go out of this. Let's see if Ryan Van Hara's in there. Don't click on Van Hara. Yeah, so you might have been in the Market Center system. This is I've got 3 different logins that I use for this. Ariel, So again, I can only check the people that I've ran for. So I don't have you all in this particular system. Go to the next page real quick. Joe Cozo, just pull up Joe Cozo. Yes, so what'll happen is, so you can see Joe's report. Hey, Joe, look at this. So you can see Joe scores high for a single agent, inbound sales, outbound sale, manager, team leader, and then differently for loan officers. So if I was interviewing, go to the page 2 of that. If I was interviewing him for like a team listing agent that he's a low match for, that report that I'm going to pull is going to be a different conversation than a report I would pull for a high match. So Joe, does that answer your question? So what you'll actually do is when you get from the market center, you're going to ask your market center, give me the report for the job you matched them for. And then they can print out this, click on PDF. So your market center should give you this report as well, which will give you an entire list of how they score out for each of the different jobs in our system. So, you know, there's been times where I've gone in here, let's say I was talking to Joe about being a technology specialist. Well, I might pull up the team leader report and say, hey, I know you're coming in interviewing for technology specialists, but I'd love to go through this report with you because it actually shows you're a high match for the team leader opportunity. And I'd like to look at that opportunity with you. That make sense? Esteban just shared his. So again, when you get this from the market center, you'll get your job fit report and your job matches. You'll need to go and request a new report if you want to score it against a different job. You can close it off.
And Michael, you should take one, every year possibly, because you are constantly evolving and growing?
I would say no. I'm a believer that you take it one time. While you grow and evolve, you're not really growing your behavior. Your personality is your personality. At 43 years old, my personality is probably not changing anymore. And it really hasn't changed much since I was about 33, 34. So I don't believe this is something that you take new every year. Now, if I've got someone in business with, Amrita, I will go and revisit it with them on a regular basis. I'll go, part of your annual review with that person might be sitting down with the KPA and see how their knowledge with it has changed over the last year. But you know, the first time you run this is going to be the realest, most accurate report you have. Make sense?
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions, thoughts, comments so far?
That exception is unless you were going through a life event.
Yeah, so for instance, I'll give you. I reviewed old AVA KPA with someone probably about a year or two ago, and I went through this report with them, and I'm like, it didn't make sense at all. And I'm like, okay, they disagreed. I'm like, okay, I'm confused as heck. Why is this report so wrong? I looked down. I said, you know, you took this report in 2016. Has anything happened to you since 2016? And the response was, yeah, I went through a bitter divorce in 2018. Okay. In that example, I had to run a different KPA because they did change. Their personality changed because they went through a major life experience that wasn't so good. So oftentimes, death, divorce, divorce and childbirth would be 3 things that could cause that to change. So you'll want to find if someone changed something. Ryan Ben Hara, I feel like you're taking pictures of me with your cell phone right now. I'm so bugged out. We're actually I want to cover one more part to kind of give you a lead into tomorrow. And then we're going to call a day a few minutes earlier. You guys cool being done a few minutes early today? All right. I'm going to read a story. We'll call this story time. Are you ready? Ready for a story? Right. An elephant came to a tiny village. No one had ever seen one before. A huge crowd gathered around the elephant, and it was an occasion for great fun. Some blind men also lived in that village, and they decided they wanted to join in the fun too. So they went to the center of the village where everyone made room for them to touch the elephant. Later on, they sat down and talked about the elephant. One blind man who had touched the trunk of the elephant said that the elephant must be like a thick tree branch. Another who touched the tail said the elephant was probably a rope. A third man who touched the tusks said it was like a spear. They sat for hours and argued. Each one was sure that their view was correct. Obviously, with limited information they each had, they thought they knew exactly what an elephant was. Finally, they decided to go to the wise man of the village and ask him who was correct. The wise man said, each one of you is correct, and each one of you is wrong. Because you only touched a part of the elephant's body, you only have a partial idea. If you put your partial views together, you'll understand what an elephant truly is. Point of this is the career visioning process. If you do just the behavior assessment, you're not going to see the whole picture. If you do just the thinking assessment, you're not going to see the whole picture. If you look at just the track record, you're not going to see the whole picture. So this process is about taking 6 different pieces and putting them together in order to get as well of a picture as you possibly can. Here's the challenge. A lot of us don't go the team building route because we're afraid to make a mistake. We're afraid to have a bad hire. We're afraid to take that risk. Know that you're going to take risk. The purpose of the career visioning process is to limit the risk you make because you're building a much better picture of the candidate before you make that decision. So typically, when I go through the process, I'll write down 2 or 3 things would be reasons why the person may not succeed. Almost every time over the last 7, 8 years, if I've gotten out of business with someone, it came back to one of those 3 things that I discovered during the career visioning process. So the career visioning process is designed to reduce the risk that you take in making a hire. So again, you can't look at just the tail or just the tusk. You have to look at the whole picture. So tomorrow, we're going to go through most of those 6 pieces tomorrow, those 6 different areas of the career visioning process in order to start giving you an introduction of how you manage all those things. We're also going to talk a little bit tomorrow about how you lead generate for these different parts of your team, primarily the executive assistants, how you lead generate, how you scrub references, how you have the introduction call with the candidates. So again, we're going to start getting into the nitty gritty. What page? The fact I actually knew you wrote what page is pretty impressive. What page do we end up on today? Tomorrow we're going to be starting with page around page 66, 67. Around page 66, 67. So in your book, look at the page where the blind man and the elephant is. That's where we ended today's call. So again, it's a process about limiting the risk you take by hiring and by understanding who the person is in these 6 different areas. Let me actually just share one more time what those 6 different areas are going to be.
So Michael, while you're looking that up, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would this be applicable to hiring a VA if you're on a tighter budget?
Not really, because you don't go through the same process to hire a VA. And the purpose of a VA is so you don't have to go through a process. The purpose of a VA is the VA kind of works for someone else who's teaching them how to support you and how to do these different tasks you need. So again, I don't know if anyone's had a different experience. I don't think I've ever heard anyone tell a story how they took a VA through a KPA process. The VA is less risk because you're not committing to them as long-term as someone you're hiring. So I would say this may not actually be of value in the KPA in the VA process.
Okay.
So what we're going to start going through tomorrow is the screening process, where we understand the knowledge, skills, and track record. That's one of the 6 pieces. The personality and culture to go forward. How to go through the in-depth interview to understand the personality and the behavior. And then we'll get into perspective and then commitment. So tomorrow we'll probably get through the first 2 parts of these 4 parts. So Barry, we ended on page 70, Barry. Ended on page 70 today. Any questions, thoughts, comments, or excitements? Questions, thoughts, comments, excitements? How are you doing so far?
Michael, I have a quick question.
Sure, Barry.
Would you think that the results on either a KPA or whatever would be affected by years at KW?
No.
Okay.
I think what happens with years at KW, it makes them a better fit for your culture because they're already in our culture.
Right.
But the KPI results, behavior, and thinking traits will have nothing to do about any company that they're with. That's more of a cultural fit.
So the fit would just be on the culture side.
Yep.
Thank you.
But, and again, and on the skills, you'll need to spend more time ramping them up with Command and DocuSign and some of our tools. If you're hiring from outside the organization, we will talk a little bit about the benefit of hiring outside versus inside tomorrow.
Great.
Thank you
So I'd love
so much, Mike.
Thank you.
For
Thank you, Hussein.
everything, and it really was good, and I didn't get distracted, which is very important.
Awesome. I'd love to hear a couple about ahas. What ahas did you get out of today? Give me three. Give me three ahas.
Okay, so
You
one
can
of the
take the
ahas
class
I got.
over and over again, and the material just sounds different, and it's not.
Yeah, because you've done this quite a bit, but you're still learning
Yeah.
here today, right, Mary Beth?
Yep, absolutely.
You taught this. you taught this, and you still learn.
Yep.
I had a big takeaway with the if you're doing exactly what you love, if not, you don't have someone to do it for you. I thought that was pretty big.
Yep. You're doing it because you love it and you have no one else to do it. Thank you.
Blind man.
One more.
And calculating like the number of hours you spend and what you get, I think your own worth, I think that's most important for me, that you spend your time where you are the most effective rather than doing a $15 job.
Yep. Yeah. I love that. And Marcus Buckingham writes this great book called Strength Finders. And in it, he talks about, as parents, our children brings home the report card, and we tell them to work harder at the classes they got a C in, when we should be telling them to work harder at the classes they got an A in. Take the things you do naturally well and do them better. So, find the things that you do well and find a way to spend as much time as you can in that area. Viola, I think you wanted to share something?
Oh, I mentioned the blind man and elephant and understanding it's just more than one part to career vision, and the entire elephant has to be considered in order to move forward with someone that should be considered for the right hire.
I got a lot, Michael, out of the assertive chart and where that would fall, between director of ops and an admin.
Awesome. Ashley, can you put Marcus Buckingham Strength Finders in the chat? If you could do me a favor, before you sign off the call, we're going to wrap up. We'll start at the same time tomorrow, 10:30. I'd love for you to put a number, score between 1 and 10 in the chat box. Between 1 and 10. 10 being you got out of today exactly what you were hoping to get out of today, and 1 being like, holy cow, that was nothing. Now, I've had that happen. I had someone come and left a half hour into the class because they realized that they were in the wrong class. So I'd love to have you rate me scale 1 to 10 as far as what you got, whether you got out of today what you were expecting or not. And I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you doing a virtual way of doing this. This is different for me. Hopefully we can get through tomorrow as smoothly as possible. And we'll start dissecting how to look at the elephant from 6 different points tomorrow. Sound good? Awesome, guys.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of it. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:30.